Chers amis, chers collègues, bonsoir. Merci à vous toutes et tous d'être là, d'être venus. Je suis ravie de vous voir à la 9e réunion des séminaires de l'Institut de philosophie indépendante. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes exceptionnellement accueillis par la Maison de la philosophie Marin-Mersenne, car la Sorbonne est fermée suite à des manifestations, comme vous le savez sans doute. Notre association internationale, Institut de philosophie indépendante, est fondée par des philosophes russes qui ont quitté leur pays à désaccord avec la politique militaire des autorités et la guerre en Ukraine. L'Institut a trois missions principales. Il mène des études critiques en philosophie, en sciences humaines et en sciences sociales. Il soutient les chercheurs qui ont été contraints de quitter la Russie. Il développe des projets de recherche conjoints avec des collègues du monde entier. Nous cherchons des réponses aux questions globales suivantes. Quelle est la logique historique et sociopolitique des événements qui se déroulent sous nos yeux? Quel rôle jouent les écoles et traditions philosophiques nationales dans le monde contemporain? Quelle peut être la contribution de la communauté universitaire pour sortir de la crise actuelle? Aujourd'hui, c'est la 9e rencontre de notre série de séminaires mensuels. La série s'appelle Les outils philosophiques dans l'analyse des défis contemporains. Pourquoi? Depuis le siècle des Lumières et les célèbres débats sur la philosophie populaire, la philosophie a été plusieurs fois confrontée à la question de son utilité auprès d'un large public et à la question de sa capacité à fournir des réponses aux défis contemporains. Est-ce que cette philosophie populaire peut conserver son caractère systématique, ou bien elle doit réinventer méthodologiquement pour résoudre des problèmes spécifiques? Au regard de la perspective d'aujourd'hui, cette question semble plus pertinente que jamais. En plus, la complexité des problèmes posés par les crises politiques, économiques et existentielles menace la stabilité structure démocratique et provoque des changements sociaux rapides. Les séminaires sont assis en direct sur Zoom car il est très important que nos collègues qui ne sont pas à Paris puissent y assister virtuellement et participer à la discussion. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes en présence de M. Vladimir Gelman, professeur de politique russe à l'Institut Alexandrie, l'Université d'Helsinki, Finlande. Pendant de nombreuses années, il a enseigné à l'Université européenne à Saint-Pétersbourg. Ses recherches portent sur l'autoritarisme, la dynamique des régimes politiques, les institutions politiques, la gouvernance et l'élaboration des politiques, ainsi que sur la politique et les gouvernements infranationaux en Russie et en Eurasie. Il est lecteur et éditeur de plus de 20 ouvrages, dont Authoritarian Russia, Analyzing Post-Soviet Regime Changes, en 2015, Authoritarian Modernization in Russia, Ideas, Institutions and Policies, 2017, et The Politics of Bad Governance in Contemporary Russia, 2022. Il est également l'auteur de plus que 150 articles de recherche. L'intervention se fera en anglais. Vladimir, je cède les paroles à vous, s'il vous plaît.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Yulia, for organizing this seminar series. Thanks to Sorbonne University, which hosts us, even though it's not in the main Sorbonne building, but in any way. And thanks to those who come to the room here in Paris and those who join us online. Unfortunately, offline part of our audience will be in a little bit awkward position, as there is no way to demonstrate slides which will be visible for our online audience, but I hope that Yulia will resolve the matter. While Yulia is arranging everything on her computer, I have to make some sort of disclaimer. Because my guess that I'm probably the least appropriate person to give a talk at the philosophical seminar. I'm not a philosopher at all. My knowledge on this discipline is fairly limited to an exam I passed back in 1997. Then I completely forgot everything on philosophy. And if you will ask me something like what is similar and what is different between Hegel and Husserl, I will be not able to respond. I'm a political scientist, for good or for bad. It's very much a different discipline, and I never interested in philosophy, and frankly speaking, not expect to respond to philosophical questions. But irrespectively to this fact, I just hope that what I will be talking today will be of some use for philosophers who probably will learn something which didn't know previously. And what I will be talking about is a sort of follow-up of my book, Yulia just announced it, called The Politics of Bad Governance in Contemporary Russia. It was published by the University of Michigan Press in 2022, and the point is that this book was submitted to the press, the final version, just in the beginning of February of 2022. After that, probably not so many people interested on politics of bad governance, because many other things happens. And despite the fact that the book, which is available for free, I will tell a little bit later how to do so, how to get access to this book. It was downloaded dozens of thousands of times, which is good. But it barely been referred or cited, and became virtually unnoticed. Maybe it's because the book is not so good, but maybe because people interested on some other issues than bad governance in Russia. But I believe that these issues worth attention, not only due to the current affairs, but much more broadly. Is there any chance that slides will be available on Yulia's computer?
I will send it to you.
Okay, what I will do, I will share my slides online, and just turn the notebook. Okay, it doesn't work, doesn't matter. I will try to show the slides in a way that they will be visible to offline part of our audience, and I will limit these turns to two important pictures. Let's have a look on this picture, which is a very well-known fresco. It's a fresco by Ambrogio Lorenzetti called the Allegory of Bad Governance, in Italia, Allegoria del Cattivo Governo. This is part of PED fresco, allegory of good governance and allegory of bad governance. It was ordered by the city hall of Siena, of medieval oligarchic republic, and still located in this place by now. This is probably the vision of how medieval people perceived bad governance. And the central character of this picture may look somehow very familiar to contemporary observers, because you may be surprised how similar the face of this central character to the face of the current Russian President Vladimir Putin. However, all similarities are just by chance, because this is 14th century, and this person, this character, according to the vision of Lorenzetti, is a symbol of tyranny. Characters behind one level below this central character are symbols of various deadly scenes. And at the bottom of this fresco, there is a swaddling figure, which is justice. This picture was discussed many times by historians and by philosophers as well. Quentin Skinner devoted an entire article to these paired frescoes. But actually, the vision of bad governance in 14th century Siena is not so different from how we understand quality of governance nowadays. If you will have a look on the most authoritative assessment of quality of governance globally, produced by the World Bank, this is the project called Worldwide Governance Indicators, you will figure out that there are, they use 6 indicators of governance, but for my book, I referred only to 4. These 4 indicators are the rule of law, control of corruption, regulatory quality, and effectiveness of government. Basically, this is not so different from our understanding of quality of governance in everyday life. But what is important that the World Bank published annual reports. It's some sort of integral report, which is based upon dozens of indicators and assessments made by some other agencies, made by certain NGOs, and the like. And these rankings of quality of governance produced by the World Bank clearly demonstrated us that there is a strong correlation between the wealth of nations and quality of governance. More well-to-do nations, yeah, please, next, yeah. More well-to-do nations are usually governed better than their less wealthy counterparts. And it basically means that wealthy countries tend to perform better, or probably countries which perform better, they are more wealthy. We don't know. We don't know, not only because correlation doesn't mean causation, but also because the period of observations of the World Bank started in 1996. We have no retrospective data, and any discussion on this matter would be quite speculative. But let's have a look on data of 2018. The period before pandemic, the period when nobody even considered the war as a real option. And what we can observe in this time that at least in 3 out of these 4 indicators, at the slide there are 2 indicators, but believe me that the indicator of regulatory quality demonstrated nearly the same pattern. Russia greatly underperformed. In other words, judging by GDP per capita, the quality of governance in Russia should be somewhat comparable to Bulgaria. I wouldn't say that Bulgaria is the best example of good quality of governance, but the problem is that Russia is on par with other countries than Bulgaria. Russia's indicators are very close to Burkina Faso. And Burkina Faso is one of the poorest African nations. Paradoxically, during the last years of the Soviet Union, then Soviet Union was blamed as Upper Volta with rockets. Upper Volta by that time not existed because the country was renamed to Burkina Faso, but actually it was the statement very much a punditry rather than analytical category. Now we see that Russia is governed in many ways worse than Burkina Faso, and we need to figure out why. Why a relatively well-to-do nation performed very poorly. And what it basically means for our understanding of governance, not only in this particular country, not only in Russia, but globally. Because if we observe some instance of an outlier, and Russia actually is not only the country which is outlier. If we have a look on similar data for various other post-Soviet countries, ranging from Ukraine to Kazakhstan, numbers will be not much different from those of Russia. Thus, we need to understand the very logic of development of quality of governance in post-Soviet Eurasia as a whole, and have a look on some ups and downs in these developments. And to summarize, my argument is very much different from what people in the World Bank or in other international agencies and research institutions tend to concentrate. The argument is very much normative. Bad governance is considered as some sort of deviation. And according to this logic, good governance is some sort of normative ideal, and every country should drive towards this direction in one way or another. Well, I believe that there are some people who may come to us, and I wonder if there is an opportunity. Yeah, please come on in. You can keep the door open. It's probably easier solution. Yeah. Okay. So this logic of normative analysis is somewhat very different from my perspective, which addressed to a different logic. This logic emerged not only from scholarly experience, but from my own personal experience, both as a professor and as a student. As a professor, and as many professors elsewhere at the globe, I definitely argue for academic integrity, try to persuade my students and students elsewhere that they should be honest, they should behave according to some ethical codes, and so on and so forth. However, when I've been a student by myself, I was the only student who never ever cheated. everybody else cheated, at least in the late Soviet educational establishment. This is why I learned the most important lessons from that. And to summarize, this lesson is bad governance is the norm and good governance is the exception, not vice versa. In other words, if people met no constraint on their behavior, they will pursue rent-seeking and corruption as major goals and substantive purposes of governing respective countries. From this perspective, one should probably not read ethical codes or some examples of good practices, but rather read books like Lord of the Flies, which is a kind of classical example of how bad governance emerged in a community which met no constraints. And if we assume that by default rulers would like to cheat and steal their countries as long as possible and as much as possible, then we have to ask ourselves, okay, in the real world, we not observe things like that. In the real world, rulers are constrained, very often quite severely constrained. It's not a constraint of rent-seeking and corruption as such. We know, well, France probably is prime example that there are many presidents, ministers, prime ministers, any other top officials who are involved in rent-seeking and corruption, but it is constrained and rulers have to invest a lot of efforts and resources in avoidance of their constraints. So why in the real world there are constraints to bad governance? Actually, if we have a look on comparative historical literature, we'll find out that these constraints emerged not by default. These constraints emerged as side effects of long-term historical evolution and as a side effect of two types of challenges. First type of challenges emerged out of international competition and severe international conflicts which required rulers to invest into something else rather than to invest in stealing money and doing stuff like that. These constraints emerged from major wars. The European history is basically a history of major wars, and as Charles Tilly once pointed out, war made the state and states made war. In other words, rulers who steal everything may lose war, may lose their power, lose territories and the like. This is why they have to invest something into building more well-performing armies, invest into civilian and military bureaucracies, and this is why military conflicts contributed greatly to incentives for improving quality of governance. However, I would say that after the end of the Cold War, major wars considered to be not a viable option, and these constraints were relatively negligible until very recently. I will talk a little bit in the end what are the most recent challenges. The second block of constraints emerged out of domestic competitions, and this is the logic outlined by Douglas North and his collaborators in the powerful study called Violence and Social Orders. And North and his co-authors focused on pernicious effects of unlimited domestic political struggle, the struggle for control over rents and the struggle for rent seeking very often contributed to long-term decline and decay of performance of various states and nations. And this is why rulers and elites have to find certain ways to avoid these endless conflicts. The question is to what extent this logic of analysis, which is focused on issues of the past and success stories in various countries, is relevant for post-Soviet Eurasia. And given the process followed after the Soviet collapse, one might say that both domestic and international incentives for improving quality of governance were very much limited. What is bad governance? What are the rules of the game? And I summarized them very briefly. First, I pointed out that rent extraction is a major goal and substantive purpose of governing the state. The mechanism of governance is very close to top-down hierarchy, or what in Russian political slang is labeled as the power vertical. And there is a tendency toward political monopoly and autonomy of various political and economic actors vis-a-vis this monopoly is very much conditional and can be reduced or abolished in any given moment. And at the same time, formal rules of the game, laws, bylaws, and the like became just a byproduct of struggle of various actors over rents within this hierarchy of power vertical, but it's not a kind of army-like chain of commands, but rather there are internal conflicts between and within various agencies, various actors for access to rents. Okay, what went wrong with this bad governance? There are several factors which contributed to its persistence. First, post-Soviet authoritarian regimes tend to be personalist. This is a huge difference with one-party regimes, with monarchies, and even with military regimes. And the problem for personalist regimes is their limited time horizon and strong incentives for political and economic actors to behave as Mensa Olson called it, as roving bandits. There are stationary bandits. Monarchs are stationary bandits. They aimed at improving of power and wealth of their sons, grandsons, and the like. This is the logic of continuity of this type of regimes. Party-based regimes actually maintained on nearly the same way, even though very often it is not individual power transfer, but rather collective power transfer within Soviet Communist Party or within Chinese Communist Party and the like. But personalist regimes usually met certain constraints because of lifetime leadership of personalistic rulers. Dynasty continuity is very much rare and problematic, and this is why servants of these regimes tend to behave in a different way than servants under monarchy or servants under party-based regimes. The second problem is the problem of state sovereignty. Actually, in interaction with international actors, sovereignty is an argument of last resort. the state can do whatever it wants vis-a-vis external partners, and external partners are powerless. They can't do anything with the government, which imposed its rules, irrespectively to good or bad will of international actors, including some donors like the World Bank. There is a whole story of cheating the World Bank for political reasons, and there are no leverages of influence and control over sovereign nations. And finally, despite the fact that bad governance produced a lot of losses for the country and for its citizens, there are very powerful beneficiaries of bad governance. People who benefited greatly from rent-seeking and corruption being involved in maintenance of political and institutional status quo. There are numerous people in law enforcement agencies, or even, for example, school teachers who are involved in producing electoral fraud and the like. And these people are very much interested in maintenance of bad governance, despite the fact that they bear the same losses like people who are not involved in rent-seeking and corruption. What are the negative effects of bad governance in the region and beyond? First, there is a phenomenon which Russian scholar who recently fled to Israel, Ella Paniach, labeled as the overregulated state. There is a combination of high density and poor quality of state regulations, and their very arbitrary implementation. Everybody who served in whatever organization knows well that organizations have to invest a lot of efforts in producing whatever reporting and statistics. There are special people who have to deal with state regulators, produce a lot of documents. Every checkup is a disaster for whatever organization. But the problem is that these regulatory agencies face to their own regulations, to their own quotas. They have to discover 10% more violations than in the previous year. If it will be more than 10% increase, then they will face with further increase of requirements of their superiors. If they perform not so successfully, there are no violations more than in the previous year, they will be punished for poor performance and the like. And this practice of overregulation is endless. So this is basically a side effect of this mechanism of bad governance, because there is a need of internal control within the state bureaucracy, and due to these practices of bad governance, costs of bad governance imposed to every entrepreneur, to every NGO, to any school, and so on and so forth. The second problem related to effects of bad governance is really uncontrolled behavior of top management in state-owned companies. In the book, I use an example of Russian Railways. Russian Railways is the biggest company of Russia in terms of number of workers. By 2015, overall 700,000 people used to work for the Russian Railways and its subsidiaries. So it's a huge number. However, this company for a 10 years long period was ruled by Vladimir Yakunin, the guy who was known as a dacha friend of Vladimir Putin. He was not an expert in railways. He had no well, brilliant managerial talents. However, he turned this company into his personal fiefdom, exerted a lot of influence on tariffs, other regulations, and took as much rents as possible. At a certain point, he became too much voracious. He requested too much money for subsidies of unprofitable commuter trains. And at a certain point, it led to the threat of collapse of commuter trains across the country, as regional budgets were not able to cover these expenditures. Yakunin announced that trains will be stopped. It caused huge public discontent, and probably he went too far. And Vladimir Putin fired Mr. Yakunin for his poor performance. However, this case probably not much extraordinary, as many managers of state-owned companies behave well, pretty much in the same way, and numerous stories of corruption and mismanagement in Russian state-owned companies are quite well known because of numerous journalists' investigations and the like. So the story of Mr. Yakunin was just a tip of the iceberg. And finally, any sort of policy challenge may become a disaster. And in the book, I referred to probably the most visible example of this disaster, namely how Russia deals with COVID-19 pandemic. As you probably know, the number of victims of pandemic almost 1 million people. This is a huge number by both absolute and relative numbers, and Russia was in the top 5 of countries affected by COVID. Why it happens? Why excess mortality was so huge? Actually, it was a side effect of sacrificing of lives of many ordinary people in order to avoid the major decline of output production. This was pretty cynical choice. But the government believes that the major decline of output production may be much more risky for the Kremlin in political terms. Actually, these expectations were wrong. There were no observations of major decline of public support of Russia's rulers or political regime as a whole. However, there were no any attempts of imposing full-scale quarantine supplemented by the government payments to ordinary people, like in a number of European countries. There were no major episodes of governmental support of ordinary people. Enterprises got some state subsidies, but not ordinary people and the like. And moreover, some governmental analysts considered the COVID-19 experience not as a disaster, but as a success story. One of my opponents openly stated that, hey, why you considered COVID-19 as a disaster? Listen, the decline of output in Russian industry was just 2.5%, while in the EU, on average, it was 8%. So this is about priorities, but definitely this is how the government understood bad governance and good governance, somewhat very differently from what we might expect looking on Lorenzetti's picture. Having said that, I wouldn't say that the whole picture of the governance in Russia is a story of misbehavior and misperformance. Absolutely not. Despite all the gloomy picture we observed in various policy areas, there are some examples of very prudent policies. The Russian central bank and central banks in other countries of post-Soviet Eurasia performed quite well. They targeted inflation. They conducted a relatively reasonable monetary policy. The global crisis of 2008, 2009 was by and large mitigated by a community of post-Soviet central bankers, and it was, as scholars call it, a pocket of efficiency. The same may be true for tax policies, which were basically rearranged in post-Soviet Eurasia in the early 2000s and contributed to improvement of tax collection and contributed to economic growth in all the region. Basically, they copy-pasted policy solutions from each other, so it's not only about Russian Ministry of Finance, but of counterparts of Ministry for Finance in Kazakhstan, in Georgia, in Ukraine, elsewhere. Moreover, some sectors of economy also greatly benefited from prudent policies. And Susan Wengel, a Swiss-born scholar who is now working in Sweden, she published an excellent analysis of how post-Soviet agriculture turned from the black hole of Soviet economy into a very much efficient industry, and not only Russia, but also Ukraine, Georgia, Kazakhstan, and the like performed quite well in this field in the period of 2000s and 2010s. So why there are some pockets of efficiency and success stories? Again, there are several explanations. First, there is a need for foolproofing and demand of rulers for efficient technocrats. Efficient technocrats are necessary in crucial areas like financial control and monetary policy, but also demand for efficient technocrats produced strong incentives for policy entrepreneurship. Also, success stories are important because they legitimize the status quo. And definitely rulers are interested in policy efficiency. And this is why, by the way, governance effectiveness, one of 4 indicators of the World Bank in Russia, is very much along the side of expectations judging by the GDP per capita, despite the fact that in other dimensions of governance, Russia greatly underperformed. However, the problem is that these pockets of efficiency are very much limited. There are no contagion effect. In other words, if you build an efficient organization, then there is no way to replicate examples of these success stories somewhere else. And that's the crucial point. In the book, I refer to Soviet success story, the Soviet space program, which was driven because of very strong political patronage of Nikita Khrushchev, efficient policy entrepreneurship of Sergei Korolev, and the like. In post-Soviet Russia, I referred to an example of higher school of economics, which was built under strong political patronage and efficient ties of Yaroslav Kuzminov, who was a great policy entrepreneur. However, this case also demonstrated certain limits, as examples of HSE were not translated much to other higher educational establishment, and definitely this success story ended well before Kuzminov left his job. Actually, my article was published in a British journal just one day before resignation of Kuzminov. I doubt that I had any policy influence on that, but anyway. So if we go beyond Russia, we'll find out many examples of bad governance, and I would say that the situation with quality of governance in Ukraine before February 2022 was not much better than in Russia, or sometimes even worse, if we have a look on numbers. An interesting case of Georgia. In Georgia, there was a wave of very broad and sweeping policy reforms under Saakashvili's leadership, and these reforms were aimed at putting certain constraints on bad governance. Basically, one might say that these reforms brought some partial success, but this success was temporary and rather limited, and indicators of quality of governance under the leadership of Georgian Dream Party now are more or less stagnated, and there are some trends of reversal. An interesting example of Hungary. Hungary is criticized very much for non-democratic trends in politics, but in terms of governance, there was a major decline of indicators of quality of governance under leadership of Fidesz. And of course, the biggest elephant in the room in the United States, and definitely leadership of Donald Trump demonstrated certain attempts of promotion of practices of bad governance in the United States, and some scholars argued that it's a part of some sort of global neo-patrimonial wave. I will not encroach into these details, but I would say that, of course, it's hardly a Russia-specific phenomenon. The question is whether or not bad governance may be countered. I would say that at least before February 2022, Russian rulers demonstrated certain concerns about poor quality of governance. But they proposed combating bad governance via purely technocratic solution. This is what I called in the book as a 3D framework: digitalization, deregulation, and decentralization. All of this is relevant and reasonable, but the problem is that there is not a 4D solution. There is no democratization. And this is why, as I demonstrated in the book, all these efforts had a certain limited effect. What changed after February 2022? I would say that bad governance greatly contributed to many problems Russia faced with planning and implementation of what the Kremlin called as a special military operation. This is the topic of another analysis beyond this book, which was already published by that time. But definitely what was recently exposed through various criminal cases in the top military establishment is just the tip of the iceberg. And definitely the Russian military faced with numerous problems, not only because of inefficient planning, misperceptions of leadership and the like, but also because of bad governance within the Ministry of Defense and various other state agencies. It's too early to speak to what extent the Russian government will be able to put constraints on bad governance, or rather we observe that some rent-seeking and corrupt rulers will be changed by another rent-seeking and corrupt rulers. Actually, this logic is very much along the lines of Tillian perspective, but please note that Tilly deal with long durée, with long-term perspectives of analysis of effects on war on medieval and early modern Europe, and what we observe is just a minor episode. Actually, I would say that Ukraine faced with nearly the same problem. Ukrainian military leadership also criticized for nearly the same sins, and actually judging by the state of the art of governance in Ukraine before 2022, I would say that this country also suffered greatly from bad governance. To summarize, I'm about to conclude. First, that bad governance is considered as agency-driven rather than structure-induced phenomenon. If bad governance was just a side effect of socioeconomic underdevelopment, we could not observe examples like post-Soviet Eurasia. And post-Soviet Eurasia became, by and large, victim of bad governance in the wake of post-communist transformations and authoritarian state buildings on the ruins of the Soviet Union. And what has been observed by the early 2020s is some sort of negative equilibrium, which is a little bit similar to a chronic disease. People live with chronic diseases. Their lives are probably very much imperfect, but they can manage. The problem is that states and societies, unlike individuals, never die. And sometimes they continue their hopeless and quite grim existence for decades, if not centuries. And countries of post-Soviet Eurasia faced with this danger long before February 2022. And I would say that after February of 2022, these risks are greatly increased. And finally, where to get the book? On the slides, there are numerous links. I will be happy to share with these links via Yulia with all of you who are in the room, and one can simply Google the politics of bad governance in contemporary Russia, and you will find links to various websites where the book is available for free. So please download. It is available in PDF with all these texts, and also with the great fresco of Ambrosio Lorenzetti. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was absolutely great. Sorry for technical problems, but anyway, we cope with. So your question, please, Vladimir.
Please go ahead. I also see some questions on the chat, but let's start from the room, and then we'll go to the chat. Yes, please go ahead.
I have a question. Thank you so much for your presentation. So I want to ask, like, how you see the influence of this war? Will it lead Russia to good governance now, or how it will influence the further governance in Russia? And my second question is, I'm not really sure that I understood correctly what is good and what is bad governance. So bad, it means not effective, or like in what sense, or in sense of some values, because it can be different in this way, as you said already about COVID. For a lot of Russian power leaders, it was quite effective, quite good governance. But you're saying that this is bad governance because a lot of people died, but if it's not your value, then it's probably good.
Actually, the notion of good governance understood differently by different authors, but I rely upon indicators proposed by the World Bank. The World Bank focused on pillars of governance. One pillar is the dominance of the rule of law. Another pillar is strict control of corruption. The third pillar is decent regulatory quality. Well, scholars are different what is decent and what is not decent, but anyway, it's a regulatory quality which promoted economic development, but not made the lives of economic actors and of ordinary citizens a nightmare. And finally, government effectiveness. These four pillars somehow combine both normative and positive dimensions of analysis of bad governance and good governance as the other side of the coin. When we are talking about what I call values, it's probably about priorities. What is priority for the government? If the government aimed at preservation of certain economic output at the expense of lives of citizens of a certain country, in my view, this is certainly an example of bad governance. However, some government analysts argue that, hey, it was the task set up by our superiors. We perform this task quite well, much better than our counterparts in, say, France or Finland or elsewhere. So our performance is better than those of French and Finnish state officials. Thus, it is an example of good governance. Okay, well, it's a different understanding of what is good and what is bad. And in my view, lives of citizens of a certain country should be a priority for the government of this country. For people who serve as advisors for the Russian government, for them, the key indicator is how good they implemented the top-down commands of their superiors. So it's somehow normative, but also a positive, as we can judge whether or not a certain level of industrial output production worth lives of those people who died because of the COVID. Turning to your question about prospects of quality of governance during the war, I would say it's probably too early to make a judgment. Again, there is a perspective of positive influence of long-term wars on quality of governance in late medieval and early modern Europe. It is an assumption. But at the same time, if we have a look on some third world countries, which were deeply involved in various military conflicts, will find no effects of these wars on improving quality of governance. Let's have a look on countries like Zaire, Congo, Kinshasa, which was in a deep disarray during last decade of Mobutu rule in the 1990s, and after Mobutu there is a long process of decay and disaster. We don't observe any improvement of quality of governance in this particular country. So Chilean perspective is one of the possible options, but for good or for bad, it's not the only. What will happen with quality of governance in Russia or in Ukraine, well, is remain to be seen. After 2 years, there are very much conflicting signals. There is a question online from Alexei Zhavorenkov. Alexei, could you unmute yourself and speak a little bit loudly so you maybe heard by the people in the audience?
Sure, I will try to do that. I have two questions, which are somewhat close to the previous questions asked by Katerina. The first one concerns the notion of good governance. Would you say that, for instance, meritocracy is a more important aspect or factor in good governance compared to democratization? I ask this question from the perspective of specific examples such as Singapore, for instance. The second question pertains to the specific case of Russia, which was in the focus of your presentation. Namely, if we consider the ways for Russia to abandon its practices of bad governance, if there is such a way, what would the primary measures be to get on this way? Should we consider the existing examples, such as Saakashvili's policies in Georgia or other ones, or should Russia seek for its own recipes to do this? Thank you.
Thanks so much. The issue of meritocracy is important when we are talking about rank and file servants in whatever state agencies. And I would say that there was a huge variation. If we are talking about agencies like the Central Bank, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Economic Development in Russia, there was a certain degree of meritocracy, and these agencies performed well because of many reasons, including meritocratic recruitment of their servants at the level of heads of departments and the like. Moreover, there was a study of regional administrations made by Andrei Yakovlev, a former scholar from the Higher School of Economics. He is now in Davis Center in Harvard University. And this team find out that there was a rise of meritocracy at the level of provincial administrations in Russia. So it works this way. However, if we are talking about law enforcement agencies, then any attempt of imposed meritocracy put under the big question mark. So the record of Russia in this respect was very mixed, to put it mildly. it's really hard to say what is the situation now, because again, there are so many conflicting signals, and the biggest question is, of course, how we can measure quality of governance under wartime conditions. With regard to ways of constraining of bad governance, Georgian example is interesting because it was a very sweeping deregulation. During first 2 years of Saakashvili's reforms, which were probably most productive, well, later on, Saakashvili went to certain, how to say, foreign policy adventures and made a lot of contradictory policy solutions. But during the first 2 years, there was a sweeping replacement of personnel in top state agencies. There was an attempt of large deregulation in various ways, and of course attempts to imposing some sort of business logic in these state agencies, as performance of bureaucrats was measured by business like KPIs, key performance indicators, and the like. I don't know to what extent the Georgian example may be a role model for other countries, Russia included, because it coincided with very much peculiar environment in that country, and probably there is no way to export Georgian model anywhere else. Actually, there were some attempts to use Georgian experience in Ukraine after the dignity revolution under leadership of Poroshenko, but these attempts were hardly successful. So my guess that for improving quality of governance, probably other countries will need some more efforts, and these efforts will be difficult and problematic. This is something which cannot be improved by one of steps, like, well, firing of all police officers overnight, like Saakashvili did for Georgia. It's probably very much unrealistic for big countries like Russia. But overall, this experience was reconsideration and further analysis. Thank you.
Do you have another questions? Other questions? Maybe I will ask you. What do you think about Gorbachev and Yeltsin governance? Was it bad? Was it good? How you estimate now from the...
Well, actually, the Soviet style government demonstrated some strong institutional constraints against rent-seeking and corruption. And of course, these constraints weakened over time during the late Soviet period and last years of Brezhnev's rule demonstrated this decline. The problem with Gorbachev's reforms was that this issue was not taken into account seriously, and economic liberalization under Gorbachev greatly contributed to a phenomenon which was called by Stephen Solnik, an American author, as stealing the state. In other words, enterprise directors, Komsomol managers, subnational state officials, and the like used every opportunity to enrich themselves and not much interested in the public good. So it was a starting point from collapse of the Soviet model of governance and the emergence of post-Soviet bad governance. And in a way, under post-Soviet rulers, Yeltsin including, this process skyrocketed. So I would say that it was initially, if we're talking about Gorbachev's reform, is some sort of unintended consequence of economic liberalization, and my understanding is that these issues were not taken into account seriously. I wouldn't say that Gorbachev promoted bad governance himself. Probably it was not the case, but definitely he gave birth to many issues which became obvious after the Soviet collapse. There is no such thing like an alternative path of history. We don't know what would be done instead, but definitely post-communist countries faced with somewhat similar problems. However, some of the countries in post-communist Europe over time were able to build certain constraints against bad governance. Countries of post-Soviet Eurasia, by and large, failed to do so.
Another question.
Yeah, questions and comments are very welcome. Yes, please.
In a situation of war like now, both sides try to destabilize the enemy, right? Now, could that governance be a weapon?
Well, I would say that probably bad governance mostly driven by domestic actors rather than from malign foreign influence. Ukrainian state machinery is corrupt not because of Russia's influence. It's corrupt in itself. And the same may be true for Russian state officials. So my understanding that these sort of covert efforts of rivals from every side to destabilize the enemies probably secondary vis-a-vis what's going on in the domestic front.
Because I know that now you're finishing the new book. Would you say a few words for your project?
Yeah, the new project is focused on domestic origins of Russian assault on Ukraine, and definitely the role of bad governance is analyzed as one of key elements of this process. Why the Russian special military operation not achieved its results immediately after February 2022. And bad governance in the military and security policy is one of the factors, alongside three others. Three other factors are personalist nature of the Russian authoritarianism, which contributed to poor institutionalization of policy making and arbitrary policy solutions. Also, misperceptions of the Russian leadership, especially with regard to foreign and security policy. And finally, the feeling of impunity, which was developed over time and very much strengthened through various episodes ranging from the Russian five-day war against Georgia to most recent military operations in Syria. This is work in progress, and this book is in the making. I hope it will appear sorry, It will appear probably next year in English by Quality Press. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, maybe take. Yeah. Apologize, catch a cold a little bit. Yeah.
How many governors should change in Russia to have a better one? We need a date.
Well, there is no guarantee that government changes will bring a better quality of governance. Actually, there are many countries which change their governments quite frequently, but the number of changes is not a guarantee for improvements. Sometimes you just well, change from bad to worse, and this may be a serious problem for any political leadership. Yeah, how to provide strong incentives for improving policy performance. Before February 2022, many people believed that, okay, there is a good deal of quite competent technocrats, and if these technocrats will go beyond their niches from certain ministries to some other policy areas, then they will improve policy performance not only in agencies like the central bank, but in other policy fields. So now we see some sort of real-time experiment. Andrei Belousov, who considered to be one of key technocrats in the Russian government, became Minister of Defense. There is a green light for some sort of purges against very corrupt and inefficient top actors in the ministry. So at a certain point, we will see whether or not there is an improvement of performance in this ministry. There are some arguments for, there are some arguments against, but I would say that technocratic solutions without certain political will of leadership may be partial at best. And again, it's too early to make any judgments, but I would say that examples of successful improvement of politics of governance are really rare. Moreover, if we have a look a little bit deeper, we'll figure out that there are certain incentives for rulers in autocracies to improve quality of governance. A lot of things was stated about, for example, experience of Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore. But come on, Lee Kuan Yew family are biggest landowners in Singapore. So for them, it's a sort of family-like business. They definitely interested in improving performance of governance because they became major beneficiaries of this performance. This case is really unique, and as an American economist, Danny Roderick, stated, for every Lee Kuan Yew there are hundreds of Mobutu. And this is why I'm a little bit skeptical. But of course, we will observe what's going on, and at a certain point, we'll get an impression whether or not reshuffling of government may contribute to improvement of quality of governance in Russia and elsewhere.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
No, I don't see any questions from our audience. There is nothing in the chat. So probably my talk was so gloomy and depressing that no one I would like to say something.
But anyway, could it be worse than now?
Well, definitely it could be. Again, Russia is far away from Singapore, but it's far away from Congo and Maputo.
So we have a chance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.